Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to the Dope CFO podcast. My name is Naomi Granger. I am the co-founder of Dope CFO, and we have Brenda on the call today. So Brenda is an accounting professional and an insurance agent from the great state of Missouri. She's been providing services for over 20 years to individuals and businesses, and she's one of the very few knowledgeable insurance agents that we know of that also specializes in accounting for cannabis company. Her firm has provided services that have ranged from bookkeeping to CFO and controller services for companies of varying shapes and sizes. So welcome, Brenda.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so today we're going to talk about insurance and in all the important considerations for picking an insurance provider for a cannabis company. And so let's jump right in. Now, I know that there's been an issue with insurance companies actually servicing and providing insurance to cannabis companies, not only the cannabis company, but also the ancillary business. So accounting professionals, attorneys, any company that's actually servicing cannabis companies. So we talk about this a lot in our group. Everyone that touches the plant and services the businesses are scrambling to find comprehensive coverage in the event that something occurs in their business. But the problem is most carriers don't provide coverage, and those of us who are servicing these companies, a lot of them are scammy. They're not real, or they don't have the proper riders in there to actually cover those companies. And so you might not know until something comes up. So today we're going to talk to our resident expert on insurance and accounting and get more insights on how to get proper coverage for not only your accounting firm, but as well as your cannabis company. So Brenda, what are some of the things that people don't know about insurance with regards to a cannabis business?
The average carriers don't cover cannabis-related activities. You really need to find someone that's a cannabis-friendly carrier, or you risk the claims not being paid. Your common carriers like State Farm, Farm Bureau, some of them that you see on the street that does your normal homeowners policies or your commercial businesses don't do cannabis businesses because they are considered a substance 1 controlled, or I guess you call it Schedule 1 controlled substance that the government regulates. So there are ancillary companies such as accountants and tax preparers need to go with cannabis-friendly E&O coverage or carrier as well. So there's just so much regulations, just like banking in the insurance world as well. So there's just a reduced number of carriers that are actually considered cannabis-friendly.
Okay, awesome. So do you actually have any recommendations or any ideas of some of these companies that might provide insurance services to both ancillary businesses as well as cannabis companies?
There are carriers, usually there's brokers that are just strictly cannabis brokers now that have multiple companies that we use quotes, or we go in and ask for quotes for. So we might get 3 or 4 quotes from different carriers when we're asking for, say, a general liability policy or a product liability policy. So we will get numerous different quotes from different carriers. And I work with different brokers, so I have a multiple, I don't know, I probably have 6 or 7 companies for certain things, and then there's other companies for, say, work comp or the buildings. So there's so many different companies. So just because you have, like, your general liability might be with a different carrier than what your cannabis is. But it's all comes into one policy in the long run because we write it through the broker, and so we can couple it all into one payment, one big setup or whatever, so that you're not paying payments to like 5 different companies.
Okay, great. So that leads me to my next question. What types of policies are common for cannabis companies in the different types of cannabis companies, different verticals?
Pretty much anything that's related to cannabis needs to be covered. So there's general liability, there's product liability, loss of use, building and business packages, your lesser risk, transportation for anybody that's carriers for the cannabis. You're also going to look at things like work comp. There might be, some people might want excess liability. There's cargo. There's just a multitude of things. And then there's also that you wouldn't think of, but your employees besides the work comp, you might want to have health insurance or life insurance or short-term or long-term disability. So there's also a whole package there that's employee benefit related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know like the farms, they have $1 million lighting and setups and things. Is there anything special that they need for their fixed assets and all of that?
It's all included in part of the building package or the business
Okay.
package. All those, that's part of the structure. So yes, there will be, it's included in that. And in the cannabis world, it's a little bit different than, say, I was writing for a commercial manufacturing company that has, they're going to have lighting and heating and cooling too, but it's going to be a little bit more oomph, I guess you could say, in most of those. And so you're going to have a little bit more coverages where you might be limited in some of the other types of commercial businesses or rental properties.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So now, are there certain things that you cannot get insurance for if you're a cannabis company?
I haven't ran across anything that you can't get coverage for, and I ended up calling my broker a while ago, but he was busy with another client, so I wasn't able to actually, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that we can't get it for, but there are limitations on the coverages. So some product liability might have a $1 million limit. I'm just using examples, and where another carrier might have a 500,000, or so different carriers have different limitations within each of those coverages. So it depends on what we're doing and the type of whether it's a cultivating company or whether it's a dispensary or any of the manufacturers. So we just have to look and see, because there are cases that maybe a product liability, 1 million might not be enough if you were having a huge recall. So those are all things that, we have to look at the carriers. I know that one of the brokers I use mostly, they use one of the top, the carriers with the highest limitations than some of the others that I've worked with.
Yeah, I mean, these are huge businesses, so I would imagine that they would need the highest limitations.
Right. There are, so many things, and I know there are other industries that probably have things like recalls and stuff that they're concerned about as well. But there are, that limitation makes a big difference between whether it's a 500,000, a million, or 5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's very important when you're looking at the quantity and the quality that you're putting out.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these insurance providers are scammy. They're not really giving coverage to these companies. So do you have any advice for cannabis CEOs or cannabis businesses of what they should be looking out for to ensure that they're getting good insurance for their company?
I would definitely start with making sure that you're working with an agent that sells cannabis-friendly coverages. Agents who are familiar with the cannabis industry, because there are a lot of agents. I used to be one of those that didn't have a lot of background in cannabis until then I started getting into it, and so I have a lot more knowledge than I did a few years ago. So at this point, finding an agent that has a lot of experience and are working with reputable carriers. There are carriers out there that are considered a B-rated company. Most people don't recommend B rated. If they're not A+ or A, then you need to reconsider another carrier or even an agent. So, you just really need to start with trying to find agents that are comfortable and understand the coverages that are necessary for the various verticals.
Got it. I mean, is there any specific questions? Because if you are just a cannabis company and you don't really know the insurance lingo, how do you know if they're really familiar, if they're not? I mean, they can just say, oh yeah, I
They
do this all
probably
day.
don't know, but an agent that's working and they know that you need product liability, or they can explain like loss of uses, or they, even if they start talking about just the very facets of either a grow or dispensary and some of the things that are going with that. I've worked with several people in Missouri that did their application process, and we had to do quotes and stuff for that application for the different types of coverages that are necessary. And even the carrier, when I was talking to him, I'm like, no, I don't like those limits, and there's a reason. And so I would give him an example being, what if something were to happen and you couldn't sell your product and it's sitting in a safe or in storage for 2 months before you can sell it. Well, on the end, you need to make sure you have enough coverage for that dollar amount that it's valued at sitting there, and it's, you know, hopefully you don't have, it doesn't expire or anything and you have to throw it away. Pardon me. So it's just, you know, things that maybe some insurance agents would know as far as because they work with another type of industry, but the cannabis is a completely different world compared to most types of coverages that you're going to write.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. And do you have any examples of where the proper insurance coverage has like saved a cannabis businesses, you know, saved them from significant liability?
Well, I keep referring to product liability. It's huge. If, you know, in a product liability, it could be the plant, it could start with, you know, you bought it at a dispensary, and it could be a product that you bought at a dispensary. It might be oils, or it might be, you know, a gummy bear. And then it's going to go all the way down. If something's wrong with it, they're going to say, hey, stop producing that. And they're going to trace it all the way back to where the problem lies, where it generated. That may be all the way back to the seed that went in the ground and how it was fertilized or something, you know. So there's product liability, and it can be huge, and it may impact all the various levels of verticals that have touched that plant, that seed, or any byproduct of it. So, you know, if you had to go back and destroy plants or products, or you had to pay out huge lawsuits because of it, that's a big deal. Other things that we see is mold, parasite, dust on the plants, improper formulas. There's a lot of things that could create a huge backlash. Also, loss of use. That's a big one. For example, loss of use is going to be if you, say your water system failed and it drowned some of your plants, or your heating and cooling system failed and your plants died, or there was a massive storm, say a tornado that came in and just took out part of your building. This is all going to cause production shutdown for a time period. And that's all going to result in a loss of use. It's either going to be for a limited, or it could be for extended period. And can you afford not to be producing during that time frame? Sometimes loss of use will help you move to a different building for a temporary while your building's being restored, or relocate you. So that helps in the event that there's a time period that you're not able to produce.
Okay, awesome. All right. So then we're going to switch gears just a little bit. So as you're an accountant and an insurance provider, so what are some of the common questions or challenges that you come across in your line of work?
Well, some of the things I'm hearing right now, both as an accountant and also because I am in the cannabis world, and I'm working with so many accountants, their first question is, do I need E&O from a different carrier? Is my normal carrier that I have currently good enough? No, you definitely need E&O coverage through a cannabis-friendly company. You know, there's a lot of people say, well, you know, I've got it through Hiscox, or I've got it through Farm Bureau. You know, I'm just naming off some companies, and they have their normal E&O through some of these, you know, what I call a normal carrier. But as an agent, those carriers are usually non-cannabis. The endorsements and the riders that are on there do not cover if you are doing cannabis business. And so some people have asked me, okay, since I'm doing non-cannabis and cannabis, can I just have one for each part of that? Unless you have two separate businesses, no. You will have to do the cannabis because that is your highest risk. And so whether or not you're doing non-cannabis with the cannabis, then results in a cannabis only E&O coverage. I've been an agent for 23 years, 9 of those as a business owner. I've sold all kinds of insurance, from crop to farms to commercials, rentals, residential, life, health, Medicare. You know, I've done quite a bit. Cannabis is an extension of those coverages, but it's regulated and it's very detailed. The average coverages are more expansive and are much more necessary than, say, what, you know, a common commercial business would be. So having a well-rounded agent that's extremely familiar in both aspects is going to be very important. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty excited about this new industry and all the changes and stuff that are going on. I'm looking forward. I've been actually adding because we're getting busy enough that I guess a couple times people know that I do the E&O, and we've talked about it, so people are being generous and throwing my name around. So started adding a few more agents because I know we're going to get busier and busier.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's a great point that you make, because I talk to a lot of accountants and they wonder if they need to set up a separate legal entity for their cannabis clients separate from their non-cannabis clients. And I always advise them to, and let me know if you would agree, but I advise them to, for one, because of the banking issues, if anything were to happen, if their bank account were to get shut down, you don't want your entire business to be shut down. And for two, I always mention because of risk. You don't want to, the insurance for a cannabis company is a higher risk, and you'll be paying a higher amount of insurance on your entire business rather than just on the cannabis piece. Would you agree with that?
Totally. Matter of fact, I've had my accounting business for 28 years, and the cannabis for one for just I was recommended by the program with you that you all have, the Dope CFO group, and then other groups that really keep them separate, because like you said, I've had this business for 28 years. I don't want to lose that or anything, and because of something might have happened in the cannabis side. But on the other side, it's kind of nice to keep those separated, because for regulated purposes, if someone were to come in, it's a lot cleaner because you've got two different systems. You got things kind of organized that way. So I think it takes a lot of your liability away also whenever you separate them.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. I agree. Okay, and now just curious, like what made you decide to do both accounting and insurance?
Well, years ago, I used to primarily do tax preparation. And so it seemed like I was really busy until about May 1st. And then I had nothing to do for the rest of the year. So I decided to get into insurance and make up the rest of the year. I had young children, and so it worked for me because I've worked from my house most of that time. I have done CFO for some really large groups and stuff, and not CFO, but controller for a couple large groups also. But the insurance just kind of provided the interim income, and then as the accounting expanded, I started doing both, and then I was like, okay, I can't do both very well. And so I've added more people, and now we're doing really well with it. So, and with the cannabis, it's really been, it's been informative, it's been enlightening. And since I already have a lot of background in the crop insurance and farm insurance and stuff, it was kind of a natural progression for me because I already had a background. I'm a farmer's daughter. I was raised on a farm. I already have a lot of background in that that culture, but not necessarily in cannabis. And so adding cannabis and going to all the expos and listening to speakers and watching and learning, and I've just really gained a lot of information in the last year and a half, 2 years, pretty much primarily since cannabis was legalized in Missouri. So that's kind of when I jumped on board when it came here, and I was like, okay, I want to be that person that helps all those people with their insurance and their accounting needs. So here I am.
Okay, awesome. And would you say, how has the cannabis accounting training helped you with growing your business in both accounting for cannabis as well as in providing insurance services for cannabis?
Well, first, being a member of the Dope CFO has been phenomenal. The course itself is so extensive and thorough. You all have put together what I consider a superior education program, and the social groups are just a key extension to that, because I've been an accountant and controller and CFO for so many years in the non-cannabis world. It just was kind of, like I said, a natural thing. But your program gets down to the nitty-gritty. It teaches you the different facets, the different phases of the accounting process. I did a lot of accrual-based business and some of the businesses that I was the controller for, but most of my businesses are cash-based. So your program was a refresher course for me on cost accounting and accrual entries. It helped me realize the tax ramifications, as well as educating me on the different necessities for the trained and experienced cannabis accountants it's just not, you really have to have someone who is what I consider certified, but trained and experienced as a cannabis accountant, because just not every accountant, not every tax preparer understands cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the limited tax deductions, the regulations, it puts it in a whole different category than just what I prepare on a regular basis for some of my accounting clients and you know, your average person coming in doing an individual tax return. So
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, so awesome, Brenda. Thank you so much. So if there are any accountants listening to this who need insurance, or any cannabis business owners who need an accountant or also need insurance, can you let them know how they can contact you?
yes, I have a LinkedIn page, which is Brenda -K -Bader -5443225, or my cannabis business is called Gold Leaf Accounting. So you can call me at 660-834 33 I was trying to think 3350, or my email is Brenda at glaccounting.com. That's a lot to say.
Okay, awesome. I'll make sure that our team will put all that stuff in the show notes, or wherever they're listening to this, so that they can also have access to your contact information.
That would be good. And the insurance side of it, years ago I started because I used to go to Florida a lot and sell in Florida, and I still do work with Florida clients, and I have clients in Arizona, and I have a few others around. So years ago I started what they call FLAMO, so it's Florida-Missouri. It's FLA-MO, which was kind of geared towards that. I probably need to rename it to be more US wide, but right now that's what it is. So it's FlamoInsuranceAssociates.com, or not .com, but the other part.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. This was very informative. I know there's a lot of questions about insurance, so hopefully this was able to clear some things up for our listeners. Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. If anybody needs anything, let me know, and I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to be part of the group.